The focus of today's show is that reignition of spirit, because it's necessary not just to survive, but to also thrive in a way that is not merely external, but mostly internal. When we thrive internally, the byproduct is thriving externally.
Welcome. You have entered the realm of 1111 Talk Radio. Your host is Simran. It's time to discover your own language with the universe. Empower yourself, broaden your mind, open your heart, and discover who you are. Now, here's your host, Simran.
Welcome. It is a pleasure to be with you, and today is going to be a solo show. I have been creating quite a few new things, slowly, gently, allowing an organic unfolding and transformation to occur, much like life, letting everything that was behind me kind of blur into the background so that I can focus into the present moment where I am. And I invite you to do that too, to take a breath and let yourself focus in on exactly where you are right now, to pull all of your energy back into your body and into this present moment. As I make quite a few technical changes and moves, I am being drawn to simplicity. I am breathing slower and more deeply, being very conscious and present to that breath, walking a lot, being very conscious and present to my footsteps. And I find myself releasing really big sighs, and you may be as well. I actually did an episode titled Big Sighs on my new podcast, You Are the Journey, that is through my Substack page, Beyond the Illusion. So I hope you'll find it there and start listening. It's a much more intimate, personal discourse that I release, and it's meant to feed your heart and soul. But back to the sighs. The sighs that I'm feeling feel like the world, as if there are many people who are holding their breath, are tense, and possibly in anxiety and fear. I'm very empathic, so I do feel a lot of the world's angst, and I feel the people around me, my community. I think it's part of the reason that I do stay very solitary, because I have to discern what's mine and what's not mine. There's also tension that I'm holding. I find places where I'm holding my own breath for my purposes. And so we have to be present to that. I want you to discern, how tense you are, and if you're holding your breath, or if you've been releasing big sighs. I want you to know that everything is going to be okay, because we are these very powerful and resilient and resourceful beings. We have been through so many things throughout our history, and especially in our lifetimes, and now in the past few years, that I know that we have the resilience to get through anything. What's required is the presence to discern what we really need to give ourselves, and the steps to take that are truly from a soulful place, a higher self place, as opposed to a conditioned, fearful, not self, egoic space. Alongside any of the tension that I feel or the moments that I hold my own breath, I also have butterflies in my stomach. I feel as if I'm starting over and things feel fresh, like a new beginning, much when I first began over 2 decades ago. Many may think, well, why start over after 20 years of building something? Well, it's because that this allows life cycles. Rather than clinging, rather than creating stagnancy or becoming old. When we cling, we become worn out, we become tired, we become rote, robotic, like machines. And whatever we're creating starts to lose its heart sense, its soul energy. And so we have to have fresh starts again. A fresh start offers a sense of newness and innocence and energy that reignites creativity. It is the natural organic cycle of life so that we shed what no longer serves and we open to what can be. We're in a time of wintering right now. It allows us the space to curl in and to feel, to mourn what needs to be released, grieved, let go of, resolved. Wintering is a powerful time to allow the seed to be in the earth, to gestate, to marinate. When you allow yourself to move in this way, the sprinklings and the inspirations and the still small voice can speak. And that's what beginning again looks like. It's going back, yet leaping forward. And that's what's happening for me. I'm going back to a blog title that I started 20 years ago, Beyond the Illusion, and I'm starting anew with it on Substack and allowing that to now express and reignite that heartfelt place that was when I began, that space of curiosity. That also sparked a second podcast that I titled You Are the Journey through that Substack. But it's a way that I can fan that flame again of inspiration and creativity and share in service like I did when I first began. I'm sharing all of this with you to serve as an example of the following discourse that we're going to get into, because this is what it means to be the spiritual rebel. This is the time for spiritual rebels to rise, for that archetype to rise within you, that reignition of spirit. It's necessary not just to survive, but to also thrive in a way that is not merely external, but mostly internal. When we thrive internally, the byproduct is thriving externally. What so many have been through and so many are going through, with the energies in the air and the tension of those around you, and in the midst of so much external change, some of which may yield fear, anxiety, and tension, there is also this invitation to transcend our circumstances, to transcend the world, and especially to transcend the self. That is your journey to enlightenment, which also happened to be the title of my second book, where I shared 12 guiding principles of love, courage, and commitment, and a message that needs to be spoken right now. These times, they need and deserve and require our love, courage, and commitment. In fact, our devotion. So what does enlightenment look like? Well, it really has nothing to do with leaving the world or escaping it. Enlightenment is not about knowing it all, but more so about embracing it all and knowing our part to play. Every aspect of nature illustrates the life cycle of rebirth, from the seasons to plants to birthings of new animals, children, and flowerings. And each time we allow for the organic cyclical movement that is life's dance, we relax into the river of energy and spirit that knows where we are designed to go. In this way, we open to a divine plan, divine will, rather than exerting personal will and then experiencing the challenges, struggle, and hardship which that interference produces. We must discern in each moment what is ours to do and what is not, what we can change and what is not ours to change. We must become still inside to discern the difference between the conditioned, fear-filled, trauma-induced, needing ego voice and that of the soft, quiet whisper of the divine voice within, the essence of spirit we were born with, the powerful creative impulse that beats throughout our body, resides within every cell, and flows within our blood. This true nature continually beckons us to transcend the limitations, constrictions, and bondage we place ourselves in. Let me repeat, we place ourselves in. I love the prayer by Reinhold Niebuhr, a Lutheran theologian who lived from 1892 to 1971. and it is the serenity prayer. Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardships as the pathway to peace. My book, Your Journey to Enlightenment, 12 Guiding Principles of Love, Courage, and Commitment in the New Dawn, actually began while embodying the very experience that I'm sharing, of living out an amazing experience of a cross-country trip in an RV with my 2 children, performing 66 one-woman shows in 66 different cities. It was an extraordinary, life-changing experience. It was present moment living, and it was expansive. It was creative expression, and it was bigger than anything I could have imagined. It grew me more than anything I could have imagined. And I'm not talking about external growth. I'm talking about internal growth, because it had me transcend the 4 states of bondage that I share within the book. And it was so interesting how this book came about, because I was in the midst of that tour when I felt called to start writing. This book just poured out of me. I can't take credit for it. The words came through. The book begins by stating the 4 restrictive states that we've been conditioned into through family and culture and society. And in these ways, we have bound ourselves to the not self. And of course, we've had help through the conditioning of others and those who have bound themselves to their not self. We live in generational and societal inheritance, so we are going to have these influences come through. And those 4 places of bondage are actual bondage that we place ourselves in. They are the servitude, they are the armor, and they are how we become replicas. And we are to transcend these by being the bridge, where we move from bondage to bonding, and servitude to service, armor to amore, and replica to rebel. Our entire history has been based upon permission to be, literally waiting on an invitation from the outside that allows our expression to heal, to grow, to evolve. We have even waited for life to extend the invitations. Life demands more than that at this time. We now must invite aliveness. In this great churning period, the agitation is asking all that has been suppressed, repressed, hidden, dominated, and denied to rise up. It is why we have certain experiences externally. They're actually facilitating this. It's no longer a time to wait for the invitation to be who we really are, but to extend the invitation to ourselves, each individually, because we can no longer remain who we are. The healing journeys of the past were supposed to take us to wholeness, but they haven't, because we became ensnared by our own wounding. In fact, most became enamored by it, glorifying and magnifying the power of the past, the power of their wounding, their illness, their dis-ease, and most of all, their story. There's a bridge to cross, a bridge we all must cross, that is a significant leap from being the human beings weakened by our past to knowing that we are God beings on legs, empowered by our presence. We must be microscopically clear as to how we have hindered ourselves in the most subtle and cunning ways. The lives that have been created encompassing advancements of technology and manners of convenience and a variety of choice are beautiful, but they're beautiful plastic baubles and gilded cages of illusion. We've convinced ourselves of these needs to allow us to feel worthy and powerful, happy and successful, yet there are still cravings, still a sense of emptiness or bouts of longing, still a need to go running, to be busying and doing. still a need and hunger for the next adventure. What has been missing that these things still cannot fill? We must admit to ourselves how what we hold as important in life may also be what keeps us in bondage. An established sense of union and communion with the self and the world can bring about a deeper sense of appreciation for the conditions we find ourselves in. We live in this land of the free, home of the brave. But how free are we? And how brave have we really been? Once an individual gains an understanding about how their complaints, criticisms, judgments, and concerns are really what they're in servitude to, they can begin to free themselves into focusing on things that allow for greater meaning and experience in life, and naturally unfold a life of service, one that first is of service to yourself, bringing fulfillment that then overflows into service of the other. Oftentimes the things we have become so passionate about, we control to such a degree that at a certain point we find ourselves being controlled by them. We can't get out. We're on the wheel, the hamster wheel. And so we have to pause and stop and really reflect at rhythmic times as to where we are and what we're doing. As we let go of these encumbrances, it also becomes apparent the degree of armor that has been worn, the defenses, the heaviness that people feel is in great part to the degree of protection that they feel is necessary. I mean, think about how you feel. How guarded are you? How defensive? How much protection do you feel like you need? And is it blatant, where you hold it strongly, like an armor? Or is it a subtle sheath that is just beneath the layer of your skin that you don't let yourself or others see, but is always there? There's a guardedness in everything we do, in every interaction. And this stems from a lack of trust, a disappearance of faith, a disappearance of faith in the universe, in the world, in people, and especially in the self. And instead of needing to surround the self with an element of protection, the opposite is required. There is a you that needs to be inserted in each situation. A fully open, present, self-seen, self-heard, in love, as love, with love, you. Vulnerable, intimate, sensitive, allowing. And then the next step is to choose to no longer be the carbon copy, the replica. In so many places and ways, there are so many people that are simply following, copying, becoming replicas. And then there's no place for the individual. And we have now moved into the age of individuation. And the whole conversation about collaboration and community is a moot point if you haven't fully individualized yourself first. And I say this because there is a lot of collaboration and community out there, but much of it is deeply codependent. It's bartering. It's unspoken agreements. It's this need to go out and get what you can by being a part of something, rather than the real standing and grounding in who you are and allowing that to be given. So these are some of the very discerning inquiries that we must dive into to really be the change that is meant to come. And in this place, the individual states inside themselves, I no longer wish to settle. I'm more than what I've been. I'm willing to live this life as the gift and adventure it has been given. And there is nothing that I will allow to hold me back from that gift of myself. I will not hold the gift of me from the world. I will not hold my own creative expression or individuality from myself. That recognition is the moment that a person can choose to leap from being a replica of society to being the rebel, the spiritual rebel. We are humans, human, light man cometh, and color. Hue means light, color, radiance. We must discover this. We do not need to be the light in the world, nor express more light. We are already that. The true discernment here is that we are here to bring light to our own places of darkness, ignorance, and deception, residing within our own consciousness, our own minds and lives. That is true light work. It has nothing to do with going out into the world and spreading light or healing others. That is ego. True light work is within, and when done, that naturally and organically brings forward the higher expression of ourselves, and the shift in consciousness is what changes our world. Now, the ego in you might be clamoring, but I'm here to do that. I've got to go do that. That's the whole point. It's doing. When light work is doing, by thinking that you're making the change externally, you have actually left yourself. You have actually left true service. But when light work becomes being, the very being you are is the example and model of service. And it's so innate that you're doing it without doing it, that you're simply expressing to yourself your own shining being, and the radiance of that filters out to all those around you, to your society, to your community, to your world, in the ways that it is most highly designed to. And that's not going to require the same type of doing or efforting that the previous did. And I can only tell you that you have to allow that to understand the distinction. We'll be right back, right after these messages.
You are listening to 1111 Talk Radio. SIMRAN is an award-winning author, publisher of 1111 Magazine, powerful speaker of wisdom, and a life mentor. Find out more at IamSimran.com. Now, back to 1111 Talk Radio.
It is not through our doing, but in our being that true light work is activated. Be aware of getting caught up in the ego's fodder and need for aggrandizement, that of society's ego as well as your own. Take a breath. Let yourself focus in on exactly where you are right now. 3 elements are very important as you move into the essence of human, and that's the integration of the invitation, an invocation of beingness, and a relaxation into essence. And these consist of delight, openness, and commitment. Life as human beings has gotten too serious. Everything is taken far too seriously, especially spirituality. The greatest dis-ease of humanity is seriousness, and it is in large part why there is so much density and stress on the planet. This type of behavior shuts people down, closes them off from the full expanse of magnetism that really is our divine right. There is a rightness to life, the ability to laugh and delight in our own creations, our own voices, our own expressions. From chaos to exquisiteness is how synchronicity becomes more easily available. Miracles happen in the places where there is openness of heart, mind, and spirit, the lightness of childlike wonder. That complete, focused commitment and expressed passion and joy are always followed by the engines of success and luck. Now, I want you to know the distinction about seriousness, because if you look in the world, if you look at politics, if you look at medicine, if you look at weather, if you look at global events, if you look at your family life, the level of seriousness feels constricting. It feels like work. But if you look at a child, they too are serious, but they are very serious about their play. And that level of seriousness is light, it's devotional, it's committed, it's courageous, it's pure love. And it's a very fine line, because one is sanity and the other is complete insanity. An approach of fun and playfulness and lightness is what brings about the synchronicities to help us move more deeply into anchoring and integrating truth of being human. To live without having to hold or control what unfolds, having no expectation of how grand it may be or what it's to do or where it's to go. Experiences then take on a multidimensional aspect. Ultimately, we learn that there's no need to fight. There's no need to have a cause, to fix, to heal, to change, or even to evolve. We are simply here to embody the whimsy and play of beings that realize the world is their playground, both inside and out. At the stage of illumination, there has been an evolution from human living on this planet to a human in full aliveness and experience. And in that place, there's no limits, and the manner of being rests in all possibility. That's the experience of both and. All motives and actions stem from this celebration of aliveness. The world can exist as it is, and you can allow aliveness. By living life as this adventure, you'll start to experience a higher awakening, a fuller, greater expression of freedom. The awareness starts to flow and pour forward. You'll see that you start to embrace this nebulous field of formlessness and timelessness and boundlessness. And within that field of expansion and expression, the only desire is going to be to follow the impulses of the heart, to have no agenda, no time constraints, nor being bound by any design. It's the spark of the heart that is allowed to be unleashed that brings you into a blaze of full glory. I would love to say that I wrote the book, Your Journey to Enlightenment, 12 Guiding Principles of Love, Courage, and Commitment in the New Dawn. But the truth is, it wrote me. It expressed through me while I was in my playful, childlike, open, wondrous state of nebulosity and timelessness and space and boundlessness. And it did so because I was willing to let loose the divine child within and hear the words that wanted to bounce off my tongue. If you want to dive more deeply into this playfulness, this feeling that I'm talking about, and inspire your own creative leap into life, feel the play in the energy of what's expressed. Allow yourself to remember. Remember what it means to be a child of seriousness in your play, of fearlessness that you can conquer the world, of superhero-ness that you can leap tall buildings in a single bound, the child that sees all possibility, an endless devotion to their full expression and play. So take a deep breath, because that was a lot. And I hope you've been inspired to move beyond your bondage, to take the leap into love, courage, and commitment, and to transcend yourself in your own journey to enlightenment. To finish out today's show, I want to leave you with one of my favorite prayers of all time. It is by St. Francis, but it also happens to appear in the Sikh holy book, the Guru Granth Sahib, in which I was reared as a child, which was written much earlier. And I have to smile because I was taught at a very young age that pearls of truth are found in every religion. And they are the same common pearls of truth, because Spirit brings those pearls to each of us, regardless of where we come from, the culture we're born into, the religion we're raised in, or the family that we have. We will find those messages come to our ears in the ways that we need to hear them. And remember, religion is merely a construct of guidance. You can embrace all of them or none of them, as long as you are embracing, connecting to, and communing with the divine within. So take a deep breath. Close your eyes and allow these words to sink in and enlighten your heart. Awaken your spirit and open the way. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. O Divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. And it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. We are at a churning point in humanity's journey, not a turning point. A churning point is a place of agitation, settling deeply beneath the surface. This palpable tension is a buildup of generations upon generations, from being conditioned to believe we are less than we really are. The rising within is stirred by the wake-up calls of our time. It may feel safer to retreat into our old ways, going into survival, fear, and isolation, but this is how you get sucked into the matrix. Although the irony rests within the enormous risk to our well-being in settling for what we believe we have been dealt, there is an even greater risk to not living out the true authentic nature and power that has been hidden, forgotten, and deeply suppressed. This power and knowing is steeped in ourselves, and this is the rising that is occurring beneath the churning. Yes, it feels like agitation. The skin feels tight around the body at times. There is a sense that the energy running through the physical body cannot contain itself. Many might mistake that for the stress of these times. However, it is something very different. The agitation is a shake-up, a wake-up, a lifting, in fact. It is the opening to a cellular realization that so much of what we believe ourselves to be is a lie. The tightness is experienced because a deep knowing is surfacing. We are bigger than the vehicle being inhabited. You are larger than the vehicle you inhabit. Let that sink in. Let that inspire you. Let it ignite you, and let it fuel you into the discovery of the mystery that you are. And most of all, thank you for being here. I know that you have many options for what is in your life, so I am deeply honored that you allow me into yours. And I'd be deeply humbled and honored to be in community with you through Beyond the Illusion, my Substack publication. So I hope you'll join me there. And listen to my new podcast, You Are the Journey. It is on the Substack app as well as on most streaming platforms. You are going to see a new face and expression of 1111 Magazine and endless powerful new interviews on 1111 Talk Radio as I awaken into a new octave of myself, of creative service and expression. Until next week, in love, of love, with love and as love, I am SIMRAN. Be well.
Thank you for opening your mind to a new reality, your heart to greater compassion, and your experience of aliveness with 1111 Talk Radio. Join host Simran next Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern Time to step through the gateway of conscious living. You are not on the journey. You are the journey.